Today we're going to be checking out something a little bit special. When it comes to having the highest quality lenses on your cameras, Otus has been pretty much at the top of the table for a really long time. In particular, the 55mm f1.4 Otus, which actually receives some of the highest DxO mark on the market for a very long time. These lenses were massive and they were pricey, but they were just absolutely excellent, being loved by both photographer and cinematographers alike. However, does this new lineup of Otus ML lenses line up with the original kind of abilities of the DSLR Otus lenses? Well, in this video, we're hopefully going to find out. So ML is, of course, the mirrorless series of lenses that they are now going to be releasing, well, hopefully anyway, and it's really exciting to see Zeiss back in the industry producing high quality optics, really where they should be. This lens is not only an E-mount, it is a Z-mount as well as RF, which means pretty much everybody has the ability to actually use one of these lenses, especially within the main mirrorless world. This isn't the first mirrorless lineup of lenses that Zeiss have actually made, of course. You do have the Batis and then also the Loxia and Milvus lenses there as well. The Loxias were these really small, nice compact lenses, slightly higher aperture than you would expect out of general primes, but they were excellent, and I actually had one myself. Let's go into some of the specs. This is of course a manual focus lens, and that's very much at the core factor of Otus lenses just in general. The idea is to take away everything they don't necessarily need and make the optic as sharp as possible. It excels in low light with the f1.4 aperture. It has a premium optic with 14 elements in 11 groups. This of course has got a 10-bladed aperture ring, making bokeh as cylindrical as possible and making it very pleasing to the eye. You got T-star anti-reflective coating, which actually reduces flare and increases the contrast, and this is something very special to Zeiss. Of course, you have the ability, like the Loxia series, to de-click the aperture ring, making it useful for cinematographers, which is a nice little extra added little bit there. It is of course an all-metal construction, making it durable. It also has weather sealing for both dust and moisture resistance, which means it's going to be okay in pretty much any weather condition, which allow it to pass through metadata into your photos so you can see what you're taking photos of and also see the clear readout on the screen, which is actually massively useful. And with it being a manual focus lens, it feels very much like the beautiful film lenses that we always used to play with, or I have played with again and again, giving it a very long focus though. I believe it's around about a 270-degree turn on it. So if you're looking to do very micro kind of like adjustments to make sure you're as sharp as possible with this lens. Now, let's talk a little bit about my general experience with the lens. Of course, I've been really wanting to have a go with an Otus lens for a long time, and they pass my way every now and then. When they originally came out, basically Zeiss's kind of design principle was, let's put as much money into this. Yes, they're going to be expensive, but they're going to be some of the most optically sharp lenses on the market. And it does relate, at least for the most part, to these new Otus lenses. And I'm going to show you some photos right about now. Also, Wales and West Photography Show is coming up between the 19th to the 21st of June. So make sure you book your tickets now. That is in down below, and well, I hope to see you there. What about the first photo that I took with it? So for a video that has actually just been released, this is a thumbnail shot that I took for the Nikon F4 video. Basically took out a camera, looking to do kind of like a video on limitations, but also film it itself. Anyway, this thumbnail was pretty much taken inside of the store with focus mainly on the Nikon logo, without the F4 being a little bit out of focus. But if we actually zoom into the shot, you can really tell the fine amount of detail that's actually in the image. But also, you can kind of see one of the things which, yes, is fixable, and I'm going to tell you a way to get around it, but f1.4, you do have a little bit of chromatic aberration. It's not something you can always get entirely rid of when it comes to these lenses, but there is chromatic aberration inside of some of the photos. However, how sharp it was in this particular situation worked out pretty well. And I was actually shooting this with a Sony A1 for that high megapixel size. But this next shot, I was kind of like looking to test kind of like how sharp it was in the center, but also on the outskirts there as well. Again, this is only on one half of the image, but you can kind of see where I was going for. Anyway, so we zoom in to the leaves. As you can see, super sharp, no problems there. The chromatic aberration hasn't really hit too much, apart from on the seam over on this side of the image. But overall, you know, it performs really well in the center. But as we get on to the outside, let's go to the far left-hand corner, and as you can see, super damn sharp, and there's nothing really to complain about. Again, onto the direct side, there's no kind of loss in sharpness, so it is sharp edge to edge, which is really what you're expecting to have here. The other side of it is that there's no vignetting, at least something that I have heard from the previous model is that it suffered with a little bit of vignetting on the corners. Doesn't seem to be apparent here. There is something about the characteristic of Zeiss lenses which I personally absolutely love. And let's move on out to the next one. So we've got that image. Let's talk about this one. Amazing. This photo was taken in street photography at manual focus. So what I was doing is setting it to like a distance I was quite comfortable with getting photos with, but also making sure I get good background separation. And that is, of course, around about a 2 to 3 meter reach. This Uber cycler just came straight past me, and I managed to grab this shot with a kind of rapid fire on my camera. And as you can see, the background separation, it looks really nice. And the thing that's coming into this photo, I feel more and more, is how kind of like the micro contrast of Zeiss lenses is coming through. And that's one of the things that I really like about Zeiss lenses, is that kind of micro contrast that you wouldn't necessarily get out of something else. But again, this lens is going to be great for people who are doing portrait photography, and Otus lenses have always been absolutely killer in that retrospect, producing some of the sharpest images I have ever actually seen. One of my photographer friends actually used it as his main staple lens, and I've never seen photos as clear, as crisp, and as stunning as those. Talking about kind of like micro contrast, but also grabbing kind of portrait shots of people, I actually took this shot and I was really very happy with it. But not only that, is you can really kind of like see the sort of like detail and there's out of focus kind of micro contrast that you still get in the image throughout it, as well as the kind of like beautiful kind of like bokeh in the background. Background separation of this image is really pleasing to the eye. And again, like I said, this is one of my favorite things. I managed to capture someone in the right emotion and it felt just right, I guess. What I would say with this, and for people worrying about shooting this necessarily with street, which is a bit more of a hardcore kind of like approach to this lens, is although you don't necessarily manage to nail the focus all the time with street, again, that's something that's a little bit harder when using a manual focus lens. And talking on that kind of like isolation of subjects with a photo that is taken at a little bit further of a distance, we come to this one. I managed to fiddle around with the camera a little bit more where I wanted to get photos of people at a little bit further of a distance. And as you can tell, he kind of like really stands out in that shot, and it kind of is a, you know, it looks, you know, your eyes are automatically drawn to this area. If I was to edit this photo again, I might crop out the lady here and then, you know, move over the subject more to him. But I really like having a lens that's actually quite weighty. I think it actually gives you a understanding of the quality of what you're shooting. When you're shooting stuff that feels plasticky, cheap, knockoff kind of like feel to it, it doesn't quite feel the same. Yes, you can still take some photos, and sometimes those plastic lenses can actually produce some great images. But when it comes to Zeiss, we know that they are pretty much industry leading for their optical sharpness, and it is really nice to see them come back to lenses. Now let's talk on the pricing. And these are the current prices for the 50mm within the Sony lineup from a third party as well as own brand GM there as well. It has actually priced itself pretty much at the top, which for an Otus lens is something I would have expected. However, it doesn't have autofocus and it's not a 1.2 lens, so does it really compare here? What would have been great to see from Zeiss is them actually introduce that into the Otus series. It's not necessarily something, and I know people might comment, it's not necessarily something that the Otus lenses have really been all about. But you've got to prove kind of like why your third-party lens is ultimately more expensive than the counterparts from the brands. And you've really got to be able to justify that. The original Otus did. This one, I feel, it's almost there, and I absolutely love it in terms of just like how it feels and everything. However, missing that autofocus is something I feel like a lot of people are going to be put off by. But when it comes to the contrast and the feel of the lens, I feel like it far outperforms a lot of its counterparts within that kind of space, outperforms it really well. Again, it's a little bit more finicky because of that manual focus, but on that note, we have a beautiful manual focus ring. It does have a very high rotation angle, which, you know, when you're using this lens, I'm guessing you're looking to use it for more for portraits and something along those kind of lines, in which micro adjustments can be done really easily because of that throw. It does feel smooth as well, and in terms of that, in terms of the ergonomics of a manual focus lens, this is some of the best on the market right now. And again, that is something that's really going to be up to you if you want to be able to jump into a manual focus lens. There is chromatic aberration here, and could be a little bit better controlled in the future. What you've done here is create a very impressive lens. What people really appreciated about the Otus originally was its optical brilliance. I feel like you would be able to take a step further with this lens. In conclusion, the Zeiss Otus is optically brilliant. It suffers with some flaws here and there, but nothing too major. All in all, really impressed with the lens. Great build quality. It feels perfect in the hand. It's a really good size, really good weight, and just a really fun all-round lens. What you're getting with an Otus is optical brilliance, simplicity, and, you know, the last note I would probably make here is it actually makes you think more about what you are taking, and anything that actually gives you the ability to, you know, spend more time trying to get, you know, the actual shot that you really want to get, the one that is going to be most memorable to you, is one of the most important parts of photography. And the Zeiss Otus, I believe, does that, and it does it really, really well. If you like the video, make sure you like, follow, subscribe if you want to see more. Have a good day.